Welcome to Mr. Night Scare's story. This is a true crime story that is dark, disturbing, and deeply unsettling. Subscribe channel and watch full story. Story number 1. The Boy in the Box, America's Greatest Unsolved Mystery. On February 25, 1957, a college student named Frederick Benoni was walking through a wooded area of Fox Chase, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He was checking his muskrat traps when he noticed something unusual: a discarded cardboard box lying near a patch of undergrowth. Inside the box was the naked body of a little boy, wrapped in a tattered flannel blanket. The child was bruised, underweight, and had freshly cut hair, almost as if someone had cut it after death. His ribs were visible, and his limbs were thin, suggesting severe malnutrition. He had blue eyes, light brown hair, and was estimated to be between 4 and 6 years old. The box had once contained a J.C. Penney baby's bassinet, a type of crib used for newborns, but there was no crib inside, just a dead boy. Realizing the horror of what he had found, Benoni fled the scene. At first, he was too scared to report it to the police, fearing he would get in trouble for his illegal traps. But the following day, another man, a peeping Tom spying on women at a nearby school, stumbled across the box as well. He reported it to the police, and the investigation began. The Philadelphia Police Department responded immediately. More than 270 police officers searched the area for evidence. They found a few small clues: a corduroy men's cap, size 7, made of blue fabric. It had a leather strap and was traced to a small store in Philadelphia, but no one could recall who bought it. A white handkerchief with the letter G embroidered in it. The blanket, which was cheaply made and mass-produced, making it impossible to track. The box itself was traced back to a J.C. Penney store in Upper Darby, Pennsylvania. However, it was sold in such large quantities that police couldn't determine who had bought it. Even more disturbing, no one reported a missing child matching the boy's description. The boy had clearly suffered neglect and possible abuse, yet there were no hospital records, no birth certificates, and no grieving parents. Police ran the boy's fingerprints, checked thousands of missing children reports, and even tried to reconstruct what his face might have looked like when alive. But every lead turned into a dead end. With no solid leads, investigators began exploring possible theories. One of the strongest theories involved a foster home located just 1.5 miles from the crime scene. It was run by Arthur and Catherine Nicoletti, who took in dozens of children over the years. Investigators learned that Arthur's stepdaughter, Anna Marie Nicoletti, had a history of mental illness and abuse. Some locals whispered that she had given birth to an illegitimate child and that the boy in the box might have been hers. A medical examiner noticed the boy's hair had been crudely cut, possibly after death, suggesting someone who cared for him might have been trying to change his appearance. However, police could never find direct evidence linking the Nicoletti family to the crime, and they denied involvement. In 2002, a woman only identified as M contacted authorities with a chilling confession. She claimed that her abusive mother had purchased the boy from his biological parents in 1954 and kept him as a captive in her home. She described years of horrific abuse. The boy was beaten, starved, and forced to live in the basement. One night, after vomiting in the bathtub, her mother lost her temper and slammed his head against the floor, killing him. Her mother, terrified of getting caught, wrapped the body in a blanket and dumped it in the woods. Investigators considered her story credible because she described details that had never been made public, including the existence of baked beans in the boy's stomach, found during the autopsy. However, no hard evidence could confirm her story. Her mother had since died, and without any physical proof, police could not close the case. Some detectives believe the boy may have been sold or kidnapped and trafficked for illegal adoption. His lack of documentation, the fact that no one reported him missing, his signs of malnutrition and abuse, all pointed to a disturbing possibility. He may have been one of the many invisible children who slipped through the cracks of the system. But without records or DNA evidence at the time, the theory remains speculative. A breakthrough in 2022, the boy gets his name back. For decades, the boy remained nameless. His small body was buried in a grave marked America's Unknown Child. Then, in 2022, after 65 years, forensic investigators used advanced DNA analysis to finally identify him. His name was Joseph Augustus Zarelli. He was born in January 1953 and had a living family in Pennsylvania. He was related to the Zarelli family, a well-known family in the Philadelphia area. His parents were identified, but police never released their names, possibly to protect surviving relatives. While Joseph finally had a name, the identity of his killer remains unknown. Why this case still haunts America? Who killed Joseph Augustus Zarelli? Why didn't his family report him missing? Was he sold, kidnapped, or abandoned? The case of the boy in the box is one of the most tragic, disturbing, and haunting unsolved crimes in American history. Despite decades of investigation, no one has ever been arrested. Even today, armchair detectives, crime experts, and forensic scientists continue to analyze the case, hoping that someday, the final piece of the puzzle will emerge. Until then, Joseph's story remains one of America's darkest mysteries. Story number 2, the disappearance of Maura Murray, a mystery that still haunts America. One of the most bizarre, chilling, and frustrating unsolved cases in modern American history is the disappearance of Maura Murray, a bright, athletic, and determined 21-year-old nursing student. Maura vanished without a trace on a cold winter night in February 2004 after crashing her car on a remote New Hampshire road. What makes this case so eerie is the complete lack of clues. No body, no confirmed sightings, and no clear reason why she vanished in the first place. What happened to Maura Murray? Was she murdered? Did she stage her own disappearance? Or was something much more sinister at play? Let's dive into one of the most haunting true crime mysteries of the 21st century. Maura Murray was a smart, disciplined, and ambitious young woman. Born in 1982 in Hanson, Massachusetts, Maura was the fourth of 5 siblings. She was an excellent student and a gifted athlete who ran track and played basketball. After high school, she attended West Point, the prestigious military academy, but later transferred to the University of Massachusetts Amherst to study nursing. On the surface, her life seemed normal. She had a close-knit family, a boyfriend, and good grades. But in the months leading up to her disappearance, something strange started happening. In the weeks before she vanished, Maura's behavior became erratic and troubling. She was caught using a stolen credit card. In late 2003, Maura was caught using a stolen credit card to order food. It seemed out of character, and her friends couldn't understand why she did it. She had an emotional breakdown at work. On February 5, 2004, Maura was working her security job at UMass when she suddenly broke down in tears. When asked what was wrong, all she said was, "My sister." Later, her sister revealed they had a minor argument, but nothing that should have caused such distress. She made odd travel plans. On February 9, 2004, Maura emailed her professors and bosses saying she needed to leave due to a family emergency. The problem? There was no family emergency. Instead, she packed up her belongings, withdrew $280 from an ATM, and bought alcohol, including a box of wine. She then got in her 1996 Saturn sedan and started driving north toward New Hampshire, a place where she had no known connections. Why was she leaving? Was she running from something or someone? The disappearance. A crash in the middle of nowhere. That evening, Maura crashed her car in a rural area along Route 112 near Haverhill, New Hampshire. At 7:27 p.m., a local school bus driver, Butch Atwood, saw the crash and stopped to help. Maura refused help and said she had already called for roadside assistance. But there was no cell service in the area, meaning she was lying. Atwood left her alone and drove home. Minutes later, Maura was gone. When police arrived at 7:46 p.m., her car was abandoned with the doors locked. The car's airbags had deployed, and a box of wine was spilled inside. Her gloves, wallet, and phone were missing, but her purse and favorite stuffed animal were still in the car. There were no footprints in the snow leading into the woods. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. What happened to Maura Murray? With no body, no confirmed sightings, and no clear motive, theories about Mora's disappearance have ranged from the plausible to the bizarre. 1. She was abducted. Some believe Mora was picked up by a stranger after the crash and met with foul play. Several people in the area saw a suspicious red pickup truck around the time she vanished. If someone stopped to help her, could they have kidnapped her? 2. She ran away and started a new life. Some believe Mora staged her own disappearance to escape her problems. She withdrew exactly $280, enough for a few nights at a motel. Did she plan to disappear and start fresh somewhere else? 3. She got lost and died in the woods. Could she have panicked, wandered into the snowy forest, and died of hypothermia? But if that were true, why was no body ever found? 4. Her boyfriend or family were involved. Some suspect her boyfriend, Bill Roche. He was reportedly controlling and manipulative, but he was hundreds of miles away in Oklahoma when she vanished. Some believe a local predator was lurking nearby and snatched Mora. A suspicious man, Rodney Stanger, was later convicted of murdering a woman in Massachusetts. Some believe he could have been in the area when Mora vanished. Strange clues and unanswered questions. Over the years, several disturbing clues have emerged. A mysterious phone call was made to Mora's family days after she vanished. But when they answered, no one spoke. Police refused to release some case files, fueling conspiracy theories. There were possible sightings of Mora, but none were confirmed. Despite extensive searches, interviews, and national media coverage, Mora has never been found. For nearly 2 decades, Mora's case has fascinated armchair detectives, journalists, and professional investigators. In 2017, the case was featured on The Disappearance of Maura Murray, a documentary that raised new theories. In 2021, police conducted new searches in areas near her crash site, but nothing was found. In 2023, authorities confirmed Mora's case is still active and ongoing. Despite years of investigation, no solid evidence has ever explained what really happened that night. A haunting legacy. The case of Maura Murray is one of the most disturbing disappearances in modern U.S. history. Did she run away? Did someone kill her? Was it an accident or a carefully planned escape? Until new evidence emerges, Maura's fate remains one of America's most chilling mysteries. Story number 3. The Dyatlov Pass Incident, 1959. Russia's most terrifying unsolved mystery. In the dead of winter, deep in the Ural Mountains of Soviet Russia, 9 experienced hikers mysteriously perished under chilling and unexplained circumstances. Their bodies were found scattered across the snow, some nearly naked, others with horrific injuries. Crushed skulls, broken ribs, and even a missing tongue. No one knows for sure what happened on that mountain. Soviet investigators claimed it was due to an unknown compelling force, but decades later, theories still swirl. Was it a government cover-up, an avalanche, a Yeti attack, or something even more terrifying? This is the real-life horror story of the Dyatlov Pass incident. In January 1959, a group of 10 skilled mountaineers from the Ural Polytechnical Institute in Sverdlovsk, modern-day Ekaterinburg, set off on a skiing expedition into the treacherous Ural Mountains. The leader of the group was Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old engineering student and experienced outdoorsman. The route they planned was extremely dangerous, rated as Category 3, the most difficult level of difficulty. The team: Igor Dyatlov, 23, the leader, Zinaida Kalmogorova, 22, the energetic, fun-loving girl of the group, Yuri Doroshenko, 21, fearless, once survived a bear attack, Ludmila Dubinina, 20, tough, outspoken, but kind, Alexander Kolevatov, 24, intelligent, analytical thinker, Rustam Slobodin, 23, strong and athletic, Nikolai Thibault-Brignol, 23, French-Russian, known for his intelligence, Semyon Zolotaryov, 38, a mysterious outsider much older than the rest, Yuri Krivonischenko, 23, the prankster and joker of the group. A 10th member, Yuri Yudin, 21, started the trip with them but had to turn back due to illness. He was the only one who would survive. The group planned to ski 200 miles, 322 kilometers, to reach Otorten Mountain, deep in the Ural wilderness. But they never made it. On February 1st, 1959, after weeks of trekking through brutal cold, the group set up camp on the slopes of Kolitsyakal, a name that means dead mountain in the local Mansi language. Then, something went terribly wrong. Investigators later found their tent ripped open from the inside, as if the hikers had slashed their way out in sheer panic. Even more bizarre, they ran barefoot into the freezing night, wearing only socks or light clothing, despite the -30 degrees Fahrenheit, -34 degrees Celsius temperatures. The scene that rescuers found weeks later was horrifying. The grim discovery: bodies scattered in the snow. After searching for weeks, Soviet authorities found all 9 bodies, but not in one place. 2 bodies, Krivonischenko and Doroshenko, were found first, near a tree, barefoot and wearing only their underwear. Their hands were covered in burn marks, as if they had desperately tried to start a fire. 3 more bodies, Dyatlov, Kolmogorova, and Slobodin, were found between the tent and the tree, as if they had been trying to crawl back to the tent before freezing to death. 2 months later, the last 4 bodies were found deep in a ravine, 75 meters from the others. Their injuries were beyond disturbing. The shocking autopsy results: Ludmila Dubinina's tongue was missing. Thibaut Brignol's skull was crushed. Zolotaryov and Dubinina had broken ribs, but no external wounds. The force of their injuries was described as equivalent to a car crash. No signs of animal attacks or human struggle were found. The Soviet government ruled that they had died due to an unknown compelling force. But what really happened? What could have killed the Dyatlov group? With so many strange details, theories have ranged from the plausible to the paranormal. Some researchers claim the group was caught in a rare type of avalanche that forced them to flee. However, no traditional avalanche evidence was found at the scene. If there was an avalanche, why did some victims have extreme internal injuries? Some believe the hikers accidentally wandered into a secret military test site. Reports mention glowing orange orbs in the sky around the time of their deaths, possibly missile tests. Radiation was found on some of the clothing, further fueling suspicions. Did they see something they weren't supposed to? The local Mansi people were known to live in the area, but there was zero evidence of a struggle or weapons being used. Some experts believe powerful downward winds could have forced them to flee, but this doesn't explain the massive injuries or missing tongue. Some believe a creature like a yeti could have attacked them. Others suggest they encountered something extraterrestrial. The hikers were found with high levels of radiation on their clothes. Why? Some scientists suggest strong winds could have created an infrasound, a low-frequency vibration that induces panic and hallucinations. This could explain why they fled their tent, but not why some had crushed bones. Decades later, a case that still haunts the world. For over 60 years, the Dyatlov Pass incident has remained one of the most terrifying unsolved mysteries in the world. In 2019, the Russian government reopened the case. In 2021, they concluded it was likely an avalanche, but many experts and the victims' families still don't believe it. Why did they cut open their tent from the inside instead of using the entrance? Why did some have crushed bones with no external wounds? What happened to Dubinina's tongue? What were the glowing orange orbs in the sky? Until these mysteries are solved, the Dyatlov Pass incident remains one of the most chilling and unexplained true crime cases in history. Was it a government cover-up, an avalanche, or something much more sinister? The truth may never be known, but the Dyatlov Pass incident remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of all time. This content may violate our usage policies. Did we get it wrong? Please tell us by giving this response a thumbs down. Story number 4. The Vanishing of the Sodder Children, 1945. A Christmas Nightmare. One of America's most chilling unsolved mysteries is the disappearance of 5 children from the Sodder family on Christmas Eve, 1945. A mysterious fire burned their home to the ground, but no remains of the children were ever found. Strange phone calls, cryptic messages, and bizarre sightings haunted the family for decades, leading many to believe that the children were kidnapped rather than killed. Even today, no one knows what really happened to the Sauter children. The Sauter family, a happy life turned to tragedy. The Sauters were an Italian-American family living in Fayetteville, West Virginia. George and Jenny Sauter had 10 children and were well respected in their community. George Sauter was a successful businessman who often spoke out against Italian dictator Benito Mussolini. This led to tensions with other Italian immigrants in town, some of whom made threats against the Sauter family. Despite this, life was normal until Christmas Eve 1945, when everything changed forever. Christmas Eve 1945, the fire that changed everything. December 24, 1945, the Sauter home was filled with holiday cheer. The older children stayed up late playing with toys. Around midnight, Jenny Sauter went to bed, while her husband George stayed up a little longer. The family home had 2 floors, with the parents sleeping downstairs and 5 of their children sleeping upstairs. At 1 a.m., the phone rang. Jenny answered and heard a strange woman's voice laughing and asking for someone who didn't live there. In the background, there were weird noises, clinking glasses, and distant laughter. Feeling unsettled, Jenny went back to bed, but noticed something strange. The house lights were still on, even though her children had gone to sleep. The front door was unlocked. Thinking nothing of it, she locked the door and went back to bed. Moments later, she woke up to the smell of smoke. The house burns, but where are the children? By 1:30 a.m., flames had engulfed the Sauter home. George, Jenny, and 4 of their children escaped, but 5 children, Maurice, 14, Martha, 12, Louis, 9, Jenny, 8, and Betty, 5, were still inside. George tried to go back in to save them, but the staircase was already in flames. Every attempt to save them failed. George ran to get his ladder, but it was missing. He tried to start his truck, but it mysteriously wouldn't start. The phone lines had been cut, preventing them from calling for help. A neighbor ran to call the fire department, but no one answered. By morning, the house was nothing but ashes. But here's the strangest part. Firefighters searched through the rubble but found no human remains. If the children had died in the fire, where were their bones? Theories. What happened to the Sauter children? With no remains found, theories began to swirl. 1. The fire was an accident, but the bodies were destroyed. Authorities ruled the fire was caused by faulty wiring. However, the Sauter home's wiring had been recently checked and found to be safe. Experts later said that even in the most extreme fires, bones should have been found. 2. The Sauter children were kidnapped. Witnesses later claimed they saw the children alive after the fire. A bus driver reported seeing people throwing something, possibly firebombs, at the house before the fire. A woman claimed she saw the children watching the fire from a passing car. A waitress at a diner 50 miles away said she saw the children with 2 strange men. 3. The mafia or political enemies took the children. Some believe the Sauter children were kidnapped as revenge for George's anti-Mussolini views. A local insurance salesman threatened George weeks before the fire, saying, "Your house is going up in smoke, and your children are going to be destroyed." 4. A cover-up by authorities? A local official told the Sauters, "Don't investigate further." The firefighter in charge of the case was later revealed to have found a small piece of bone, but buried it in secret. The cryptic messages and a chilling photograph. For years, Jenny Sauter refused to believe her children were dead. She tested chicken bones in fire experiments, proving that bones don't disintegrate in normal house fires. The Sauters placed billboards around town with pictures of their missing children. They received strange letters and phone calls saying, "Your children are alive." The most shocking clue, 1967, a mysterious photograph. In 1967, Jenny Sauter received an envelope with no return address. Inside was a photo of a man in his 20s with these words written on the back. Louis Sauter, I love brother Frankie. Ill boys. A 90132 or 35. The Sauters hired a private investigator to track the sender, but the investigator disappeared and was never seen again. Even creepier, when the FBI offered to help investigate, The local police refused their assistance. What happened to the Sodder children? To this day, no one knows. Did they die in the fire? Were they kidnapped by the mafia? Did the local police cover up the truth? The last surviving Sodder child, Sylvia, spent her life searching for the truth. But the case remains one of the greatest mysteries in American history. The Sodder children were never seen again. Story number 5. The disappearance of the Springfield 3, 1992. 3 women vanish without a trace. On June 7, 1992, in Springfield, Missouri, 3 women mysteriously vanished from their home. Their cars were in the driveway, their personal belongings were untouched, and there were no signs of a struggle. Despite thousands of tips, multiple suspects, and decades of investigation, the case remains one of the most baffling unsolved disappearances in American history. To this day, no one knows what happened to them. The 3 missing women. The victims, known as the Springfield 3, were Suzanne Susie Streeter, 19, a recent high school graduate; Stacy McCall, 18, Susie's best friend, also a recent graduate; Cheryl Levitt, 47, Susie's mother, a respected hairdresser. The 3 were supposed to spend the night elsewhere, but ended up at Cheryl's house. That decision may have cost them their lives. The night they disappeared. June 6, 1992, graduation night. Susie and Stacy had just graduated from Kickapoo High School and planned to attend parties with friends. After several party stops, they decided to stay the night at Susie's house instead of a motel. June 7, 1992, they vanish. The next morning, their friend Janelle Kirby arrived at the house but found no one there. Their cars were parked in the driveway. Their purses, keys, and clothing were inside. The front porch light was shattered. The house was unlocked. The TV was on static. Something was deeply wrong. Theories. What happened to the Springfield 3? 1. The women were abducted from their home. Investigators believe they were taken against their will from inside the house. The lack of struggle suggests they may have been lured outside by someone they trusted, or by force. 2. A serial killer was involved. A convicted killer, Robert Craig Cox, was in Springfield at the time. He later told journalists he knew what happened but would only reveal the truth after his mother died. Authorities never found enough evidence to charge him. 3. A crime of opportunity. Some believe burglars or kidnappers saw the 3 women as easy targets late at night. Could someone have been watching them and waiting for the right moment? 4. The bodies were buried under a parking garage. In 2007, a witness claimed the women's bodies were buried under a Springfield hospital parking lot. Ground-penetrating radar found anomalies in the concrete, but police never dug it up. A mystery that won't die. In 1997, police declared the case a homicide. To this day, no trace of the women has ever been found. Susie, Stacy, and Cheryl simply vanished into thin air. Over 30 years later, the case remains unsolved. Final question. Will the truth ever be found? Was it a planned abduction, a serial killer, or something even darker? No one knows, but someone out there does.